The grand ballroom fell completely silent. Every single person stopped talking. Every fork stopped moving. Every glass stopped clinking. Over 300 people. Nobles in their finest silks, merchants wearing golden chains, and servants in crisp uniforms. All froze like statues. Why? Because Prince Adrian, the most powerful young man in the entire kingdom, was walking across the marble floor. His royal cape swept behind him like a river of midnight blue velvet. His boots clicked against the floor. Click, 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 and each sound made hearts beat faster. But he wasn't walking toward the throne. He wasn't walking toward his father, the king. He wasn't even walking toward the beautiful Princess Melissa, who everyone expected him to marry. He was walking toward her. Toward the girl everyone called the orphan trash. Toward 15-year-old Emma, who stood in the corner wearing a torn dress covered in soup stains. Her face red from fresh slap marks, tears streaming down her dirty cheeks. And then, thud, Prince Adrian did something nobody in the kingdom had ever seen a prince do. He dropped to one knee before her. The crowd gasped so loudly it sounded like wind rushing through a cave. Lady Victoria, the cruelest woman in the palace, turned white as snow. Her mouth opened but no words came out. Lord Benedict's wineglass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Crash! But he didn't even notice. Young Thomas, who had pushed Emma into the fountain just that morning, stumbled backward and nearly fainted. What is he doing? Someone whispered. Prince Adrian looked up at Emma with eyes full of something nobody could understand. Was it respect? Was it love? What secret could possibly make a prince kneel before an orphan girl that everyone mocked and hated? Emma's trembling hand reached toward him, confusion and fear mixing with something else. Something that looked like recognition. You, the prince said softly, his voice carrying across the silent room. You are. But wait, before we find out what happens next, can you do me a huge favor? Hit that subscribe button right now. Are you watching from America? Nigeria, India, the Philippines? Drop your country in the comments below. Now let's go back to where this crazy story actually began. Emma woke up when someone threw ice-cold water on her face. Get up, you lazy rat! Screamed Martha, the head maid. She was a large woman with a face like an angry bulldog. You think you can sleep while there's work to do? Emma jumped up from her tiny bed, which was really just old blankets on the floor in a storage closet. She shivered. Her thin nightgown was now soaking wet and freezing cold. I am sorry, Miss Martha, Emma stammered. I'll get dressed right away. You better. Lady Victoria wants the entire East Wing scrubbed before breakfast. Every floor, every window, every wall. And if I find even one speck of dust, you'll go without food for 2 days. Martha slammed the door so hard that dust fell from the ceiling onto Emma's head. Emma quickly changed into her work dress, the only dress she owned. It used to be white maybe 5 years ago. Now it was gray with stains and had 3 big holes in it. She tried to sew them up once, but she wasn't very good at sewing. She looked at herself in the small, cracked mirror hanging on the wall. Her brown hair was messy and tangled. Her face was thin, too thin, because she only ate leftover scraps most days. Her green eyes looked tired, with dark circles underneath them. Another beautiful day, she whispered to herself with a sad little smile. It was a joke, of course. None of her days were beautiful. Emma had lived in Rosewood Palace since she was 5 years old. She didn't remember much about her life before that. Just tiny memories that felt like dreams. A woman's gentle voice singing to her. The smell of flowers, warm sunshine on her face, and feeling safe and loved. Then one day, everything changed. She woke up in an orphanage with strangers all around her. The women who ran the orphanage weren't kind. They told her she had no family, no home, and no future. You're nobody, they said. You should be grateful we even feed you. When Emma turned 6, the orphanage sent her to work at Rosewood Palace. Maybe you can be useful as a servant, they told her. At first, Emma was excited. A palace. Maybe it would be wonderful like in the fairy tales. But palaces in real life weren't like fairy tales. The other servants ignored her because she was an orphan. The nobles treated her like she was invisible or worse, like she was dirt on their expensive shoes. The children of the nobles were the cruelest of all. They pushed her, tripped her, called her names, and laughed when she fell. Every single day for 9 years. But Emma had a secret that kept her going. Deep in her heart, she believed that someday, somehow, things would get better. She didn't know how or when. She just believed. Emma grabbed her bucket and scrub brush and hurried to the East Wing. The East Wing was where Lady Victoria lived. Lady Victoria was the king's cousin and one of the most powerful women in the palace. She was beautiful on the outside, tall and elegant with golden hair and expensive dresses, but ugly on the inside. She hated Emma. Nobody knew exactly why. Some servants whispered that Lady Victoria hated anyone who was weak or poor. Others said she was just born mean. Whatever the reason, Lady Victoria found new ways to make Emma's life miserable every single day. As Emma started scrubbing the marble floor on her hands and knees, she heard laughing behind her. Oh no, Emma thought. Please not today. Well, well, well. Look who's here. It's the orphan rat. Emma didn't turn around. She knew that voice. It was Thomas, Lady Victoria's 15-year-old son. He was followed everywhere by his two best friends, Marcus and James. These 3 boys were Emma's worst nightmare. Didn't you hear me, rat? I'm talking to you. Thomas kicked Emma's bucket, spilling soapy water all over the floor she just cleaned. Emma's hands shook, but she kept her eyes down. I'm sorry, young Master Thomas. I'll clean it up right away. You're always sorry, aren't you? Marcus sneered. Sorry for being born. Sorry for breathing our air. Sorry for existing. The 3 boys laughed like this was the funniest joke in the world. Thomas bent down and grabbed Emma's hair, yanking her head back. Pain shot through her scalp. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Emma had no choice. She looked up at Thomas's cruel face. His eyes were cold and empty, like a snake's eyes. My mother says you're stealing food from the kitchen, Thomas said. Is that true? And no, Emma gasped. I would never. Are you calling my mother a liar? Thomas yanked harder on her hair. No, I didn't. Please, it hurts. What hurts? This. Thomas pulled even harder, making Emma cry out. Then he suddenly let go, and Emma fell forward onto the wet floor. The boys laughed again. Clean this mess up, Thomas said, wiping his hands on a handkerchief like he'd touched something disgusting. And stay away from tonight's banquet. Nobody wants to see your ugly face. The 3 boys walked away, still laughing. Emma stayed on the floor for a moment, breathing hard, trying not to cry. Her scalp hurt. Her hands hurt. Her heart hurt. Why? She wondered. Why are people so cruel? What did I ever do to them? But she already knew the answer. She didn't do anything. She was just an easy target. An orphan with nobody to protect her. Nobody to care if she was hurt or sad or scared. Emma slowly got back to work, cleaning up the spilled water. 2 hours later, Emma was in the palace gardens, taking a short break by the beautiful fountain. The fountain was her favorite place in the whole palace. It had carved stone angels that poured water from their hands, and when the sun hit the water just right, tiny rainbows appeared in the spray. Emma liked to sit on the edge and watch the goldfish swimming in the basin below. For a few precious minutes, she could pretend she was just a normal girl enjoying a beautiful garden. There you are. Emma's peaceful moment shattered. She turned to see Thomas and his friends running toward her. I thought I told you to stay out of sight, Thomas yelled. I was just... Emma started to back away. You were just nothing. You don't belong here. This garden is for nobles, not trash. Thomas grabbed Emma's arm. Marcus grabbed her other arm. No, please. Emma struggled, but she was small and weak compared to the boys. Let's give her a bath, James suggested with a mean grin. She smells like a sewer rat. Good idea, Thomas agreed. The boys dragged Emma toward the fountain. She fought as hard as she could, twisting and pulling, but it was no use. Stop, please. I can't swim. I can't. Splash. The boys threw Emma right into the fountain. She went under the water, cold shocking her system. She panicked, thrashing around, water going up her nose and into her mouth. Her dress got tangled around her legs. I'm gonna drown, Emma thought in terror. But the fountain wasn't actually that deep, only about 4 feet. After a few horrible seconds, Emma's feet found the bottom. She stood up, gasping and coughing, water streaming down her face. The boys stood at the edge of the fountain, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. Look at her, Marcus howled. She looks like a drowned rat, an actual rat. Other nobles who had been walking in the garden stopped to watch. Some looked uncomfortable, but nobody helped Emma. Nobody told the boys to stop. They just watched. Some even smiled. Emma climbed out of the fountain, soaking wet, shaking with cold and humiliation. Water dripped from her dress and hair, forming puddles around her feet. Get out of here before I tell my mother you were swimming in the noble's fountain, Thomas said. She'll have you whipped. Emma ran. She ran through the gardens, through the hallways, past servants and nobles who stared at her wet, pathetic form. She ran all the way back to her storage closet. Only when she was alone with the door closed did she finally let herself cry. She cried for a long time. Emma was still drying her hair with an old towel when she heard a soft knock on her door. Knock, knock, knock. Emma froze. Nobody ever knocked on her door. Most people just barged in or, more often, didn't come at all. Hello? She called nervously. Delivery for Emma, said an unfamiliar voice. Emma opened the door just a crack. Standing there was a young servant boy she'd never seen before. He wore the palace uniform but looked much nicer than most servants. His clothes were clean and well-fitted, and he had kind eyes. Are you Emma? He asked with a gentle smile. Yes. This is for you. He held out a box wrapped in simple brown paper. Emma stared at it like it might bite her. There must be some mistake. Nobody sends me anything. No mistake. It has your name right here. The boy pointed to a small card attached to the box. Sure enough, it said Emma in beautiful handwriting. Emma took the box with trembling hands. Who sent this? The boy just smiled mysteriously. Someone who wanted you to have it. You should open it. Then he turned and walked away before Emma could ask more questions. Emma closed her door and sat on her blankets, staring at the box. Her heart pounded. Was this a trick? Would she open it and find something horrible inside? Bugs, maybe? Or a note saying more cruel things about her. But something made her want to open it anyway. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Slowly, carefully, Emma untied the string and unwrapped the paper. Inside was a dress. But not just any dress. It was the most beautiful dress Emma had ever seen. It was made of soft sky blue fabric that shimmered in the light. The sleeves were delicate and elegant. There was even a white ribbon for her hair. Emma touched the fabric with one finger, afraid she might damage it. Felt like touching a cloud. This can't be real, she whispered. But it was real. And there was a note inside. Every girl deserves to feel beautiful. Wear this tonight. Something special is going to happen. A friend. Emma read the note 3 times. Who would send her something so wonderful? Who could possibly be her friend? She had no idea. But for the first time in years, Emma felt a bubble of excitement in her chest. That evening, Emma did something very brave. She put on the beautiful dress. It fit her perfectly, like it was made just for her. When she looked in her cracked mirror, she barely recognized herself. The dress made her look almost pretty, almost like she belonged. Emma knew she wasn't supposed to go to the royal banquet. Thomas had specifically told her to stay away. But the note said to wear the dress tonight. The note said something special would happen. Emma decided to trust whoever sent it. Her hands shook as she walked through the palace corridors toward the grand banquet hall. She'd cleaned this hall 100 times, but she'd never actually attended an event here. 2 guards stood at the massive golden doors. Emma almost turned around and ran, but one of the guards, an older man with a kind face, smiled at her. Go ahead in, miss. he said, opening the door. Mississippi. He called her Miss, like she was someone important. Emma stepped inside, and her breath caught in her throat. The grand banquet hall was magnificent. Hundreds of candles lit the room with warm, glowing light. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Long tables were covered with white cloths and loaded with more food than Emma had ever seen. Roasted meats, fresh fruits, beautiful cakes, and delicate pastries. Nobles filled the room, all dressed in their finest clothes. Music played from somewhere, violins and flutes creating a melody that sounded like happiness itself. Emma stood just inside the door, trying to make herself invisible. She wasn't sure what she was supposed to do now. The note said something special would happen, but what? For about 10 minutes, nobody noticed her. Emma stood in her corner, watching the party like she was watching a play. She saw Lady Victoria holding court with a group of noble ladies, all of them laughing at something. She saw Thomas and his friends stuffing their faces with cake at a corner table. She saw the king and queen sitting on their thrones at the front of the room, looking bored. And then she saw him, Prince Adrian. Emma had seen the prince before, of course, but only from a distance. He was 20 years old, tall and handsome, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Unlike the other nobles who laughed and gossiped, Prince Adrian stood quietly near his parents, observing the party with a thoughtful expression. There was something different about him, something that made Emma's heart beat faster. And then, their eyes met across the crowded room. Prince Adrian was looking right at her. Emma's breath stopped. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. The prince's eyes widened slightly, and an expression Emma couldn't read crossed his face. Was he surprised? Confused? Happy? Before Emma could figure it out, disaster struck. "You!" Lady Victoria's screech cut through the music and conversation like a knife. Everyone stopped talking and turned to look. Lady Victoria was staring at Emma with absolute fury on her face. Her eyes were wide, her face was red, and her perfectly painted lips trembled with rage. "How dare you!" Lady Victoria shrieked, storming across the room toward Emma. "How dare you show your disgusting face here, and wearing a stolen dress?" Emma's heart dropped into her stomach. I didn't steal. Liar!" Lady Victoria reached Emma and slapped her hard across the face. Smack! The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Emma's cheek exploded with pain. She stumbled backward, nearly falling. The nobles whispered and muttered among themselves, but nobody stopped Lady Victoria. Nobody defended Emma. "That dress belongs to my daughter." Lady Victoria grabbed the front of Emma's dress. "You little thief! You broke into her room and stole it." "No!" Emma tried to pull away, but Lady Victoria was stronger. "I didn't steal it. Someone gave it to me. I swear." "More lies." Lady Victoria slapped Emma again, this time on the other cheek. Emma tasted blood in her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't make a sound. She'd learned long ago that crying only made the bullies happier. Thomas ran over, a cruel smile on his face. "Mother, let me help." He grabbed a glass of red wine from a nearby table and threw it right in Emma's face. Splash! The wine soaked Emma's beautiful dress, staining the sky blue fabric dark red. It dripped down her face and neck. She must have looked horrible. The nobles laughed. Actually laughed. Like this was entertainment. "Look at the orphan rat," Marcus called out. "She thought she could pretend to be one of us." James added. More laughter. Lady Victoria grabbed Emma's hair, just like Thomas had done earlier, and dragged her toward the center of the room. Emma had no choice but to stumble along, her scalp screaming with pain. "Everyone," Lady Victoria announced loudly. "Look at this thief, this worthless orphan who dared to steal from her betters. What should we do with her?" "Throw her in the dungeon," someone shouted. "Whip her," someone else suggested. "Send her away," a third voice called. Emma closed her eyes. This was it. This was the end. She'd been foolish to hope, foolish to believe the note, foolish to think, even for one moment, that she could be anything more than what everyone said she was. Worthless. Nobody. trash. And then, stop. One word, spoken quietly, but it cut through all the noise like a sword through silk. Everyone froze. Emma opened her eyes. Prince Adrian was standing. He'd risen from his chair next to the king and queen. Every eye in the room turned to him. The prince's face was calm, but his eyes burned with something intense and powerful. "Lady Victoria," the prince said in that same quiet but commanding voice. "Release her. Now." Lady Victoria's mouth fell open. "Your Highness, this girl is a thief and a—" "I said, release her." Lady Victoria's hands dropped from Emma's hair like Emma had suddenly become fire. Lady Victoria stepped back, confusion and fear mixing on her face. Prince Adrian began to walk, slowly, purposefully, straight toward Emma. Click, 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 his boots on the marble floor. The crowd parted for him like water before a ship. Emma couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Why was the prince walking toward her? What was happening? Prince Adrian stopped right in front of Emma. Up close, he was even more striking. His dark eyes searched her face like he was looking for something. His expression was a mix of wonder and disbelief and something else Emma couldn't name. And then thud, he dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. Whispers exploded everywhere. Is he kneeling? For an orphan? What is happening? This can't be real. Lady Victoria made a choking sound. Thomas's face went pale as death. Prince Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a locket on a delicate golden chain. The locket was old and worn but beautiful, with a flower pattern carved into it. He held it up for Emma to see. Emma's world stopped spinning. She knew that locket. She didn't know how she knew, but she knew it. Somewhere deep in her forgotten memories, that locket meant something. Something important. Where? Emma's voice came out as barely a whisper. Where did you get that? Prince Adrian's eyes were bright with emotion. This locket has been in my family for generations. It was given to my aunt, my father's sister, on the day she was born. The Princess Elena. Emma's head spun. Why was he telling her this? Princess Elena was beautiful and kind. The prince continued, his voice growing stronger. She was beloved by everyone. But when she was 20 years old, she fell in love with someone the king did not approve of. A commoner. A soldier. The crowd was dead silent now. Everyone leaned forward, desperate to hear. The king forbade their marriage, Prince Adrian said. But Princess Elena married the soldier anyway in secret. When the king found out, he was furious. He banished both of them from the kingdom. Princess Elena was disowned, erased from history, forbidden to ever return. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Princess Elena and her husband disappeared, the prince said. Years passed. The king regretted his decision, but his pride wouldn't let him search for her. Then, 10 years ago, we received word that Princess Elena and her husband had died in an accident. But they had a daughter, a 5-year-old daughter. No, this couldn't be. The king sent servants to find the child, Prince Adrian said. But they were too late. The girl had already been taken to an orphanage. By the time they got there, she was gone, sent somewhere to work as a servant. The servants lied to the king, told him the child had died too. They took the money meant to find her and disappeared. Prince Adrian's voice dropped to almost a whisper. For 10 years, my family has searched for Princess Elena's daughter, my cousin, the true princess. And now, he opened the locket. Inside was a tiny portrait of a beautiful woman with green eyes and brown hair. Emma's mother, the woman from her dreams, the gentle voice, the smell of flowers, the feeling of being safe and loved. You have her eyes, Prince Adrian said softly. Her face. And you have this. He pointed to Emma's neck. Emma's hand flew to her throat. There, on a thin cord she'd worn for as long as she could remember, was a small ring. She'd never thought much about it. It was just something she'd always had. Prince Adrian gently took the ring and held it next to the locket. They matched perfectly. The same flower pattern. The same design. This ring, Prince Adrian said, is the pair to this locket. They were made together, given together, meant to prove identity if anything ever happened. The prince looked into Emma's eyes. Emma, he said, you are Princess Elena's daughter. You are my cousin. You are not an orphan. You are royalty. You are Princess Emma of the House of Rosewood. The silence in the room was absolute. Emma couldn't speak, couldn't think. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. But the locket, the ring, the memories suddenly flooding back. Fuzzy but there. Her mother's voice singing. Her father's laugh. Living in a small cottage filled with love. Before everything went dark. Before she woke up in the orphanage. Before 9 years of pain and cruelty and loneliness. No, Lady Victoria gasped. No, this is impossible. She's lying. She's a con artist who... Silence. The king's voice rang out. Everyone turned. The king had stood from his throne. He walked down the steps, his royal robes flowing behind him. His face was hard to read, but his eyes were wet with tears. The king approached Emma. He looked at her face for a long moment. Then his stern expression crumbled. Elena, he whispered. You look just like my sister Elena. A tear rolled down the king's cheek. I sent her away, the king said, his voice breaking. My own sister, because I was too proud, too stubborn, and I lost her forever. But you... He reached out with a shaking hand and gently touched Emma's face. You're alive. My niece. My family. You're alive. The king pulled Emma into a tight hug. And that's when Emma finally broke. All the tears she'd been holding back for years, all the pain and fear and loneliness, came pouring out. She sobbed into the king's shoulder while he held her and cried too. I'm sorry, the king kept saying. I'm so sorry. You should never have suffered, never have been alone. I failed your mother, but I won't fail you. Never again. The queen approached, tears streaming down her own face. She wrapped her arms around both of them. Prince Adrian stood and placed his hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma looked around through her tears. The entire court was watching. Some looked shocked. Some looked happy. Some looked guilty. Lady Victoria looked like she might faint. Her face was white as paper. Thomas had actually fallen to his knees, trembling, because they suddenly realized what they'd done. They hadn't been tormenting an orphan. They'd been tormenting a princess, the king's niece, a member of the royal family, and the punishment for that would be severe. But Emma, standing in the center of the room, surrounded by her newfound family, wasn't thinking about revenge. She was thinking about the note, the mysterious note that told her to wear the dress, that told her something special would happen. Someone had known. Someone had planned this whole thing. Emma looked at Prince Adrian, who gave her a small, knowing smile. You, Emma thought. You knew who I was. You sent the dress. You made this happen. The prince winked at her, confirming it. Thank you, Emma mouthed silently. He nodded. Then he turned to the crowd. Tonight, Prince Adrian announced, we celebrate. The lost princess has come home. The musicians, after a moment of shock, began to play. Happy, triumphant music filled the air. Servants rushed forward with clean clothes for Emma, washing away the wine and replacing the stained dress with royal robes. Emma caught her reflection in one of the hall's many mirrors and barely recognized herself. She wasn't an orphan anymore. She was Princess Emma. Her life had changed forever in a single night. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Everyone who had hurt her would face consequences. And everyone who had ignored her suffering would have to live with their shame. But as Emma stood there, wearing royal robes, surrounded by family she never knew she had, only one thought filled her mind. I'm not alone anymore. And for the first time in 10 years, Emma smiled a real, genuine, happy smile. Did you enjoy this incredible story of transformation? Then please subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another amazing tale. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought of Emma's journey. And remember to share this video with someone who needs to hear a story about hope and redemption today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.